Introduction to Algebra, Part 2, Order of Operations. At the end of this lesson, you will understand the order of operations, know what parentheses mean in a formula, understand the concepts of exponents and powers, and be able to translate some specific computer symbols to traditional mathematical symbols. The order of operation is what order you do a calculation in. For example, what if you have 100 plus 100 times 5? Is the value 1,000? That'd be 100 plus 100 equals 200, and 200 times 5 equals 1,000. Or is it 600? 100 times 5 equals 500, plus an additional 100 equals 600. In algebra, we have a rule, and actually it's for math as well, called the order of priority, which is what gets calculated first. The answer is MDAS, multiplication and division first, addition and subtraction second. Now, if you have a multiply and divide next to each other, it goes left to right. If you add and or subtract next to each other, it's left to right. But if you always remember multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, you can never go wrong. So let's go back to our example of 100 plus 100 times 5. Multiplication first. So 100 times 5 equals 500. Division, we don't have any division, but addition is next. We have 500 from the 100 times 5 plus the additional 100 is 600. So 100 plus 100 times 5 equals 600. Now sometimes we may want to adjust the order in which a calculation is performed. For example, let's take that 100 plus 100 times 5, and we actually want to add the two 100s together before we multiply by 5. We can use parentheses to do this. So if we take that same equation, that same formula, but put parentheses around the two 100s, you add the two 100s together before you multiply by 5. So 100 plus 100 equals 200, and 200 times 5 equals 1,000. So just always remember, parentheses, do that stuff first before you do the stuff outside the parentheses. Now sometimes you'll see two items next to each other without either a multiplier or a parentheses, or a divider, such as if you see 4m. Just know if you see two items next to each other, it means multiply them. So if you see 4m, it means 4 times m. If you see a number next to a parentheses, it means multiply the contents of that parentheses times the number afterwards. So if you have, say, 4 parentheses 100 plus 50 parentheses, that's 4 times 100 plus 50, which is 4 times 150, or 600. Sometimes you'll see a number in a formula that is superscripted, like 3 and then a 2, which is smaller and up. It's called an exponent, or it's also referred to as a power. This means to take that number and multiply it by itself that number of times. So if you see 3 and then the 2, it means take 3 times 3, or multiplied together is 9. So if you were to see a 2 with a 3, that would be 2 times 2 times 2, or 8. You can also do it with variables, so you can have a to the second power, or even 3 to the a power. Exponents are calculated before multiply, divide, add, and subtract. So now it's EMDAS. Now the opposite of exponents and powers is something called roots. And basically if you see a symbol like you see on the screen, which is like a little kind of check mark with a number inside it, it's asking you what number times itself equals that value. So on the screen we saw what's called the square root of 4, the square root of 4, and that means what is 2 times 2. And that's the default value too. Now sometimes you'll see that same symbol, but there'll be a number in the corner, like a 3, which means what number times itself 3 times. So like and it's called the cube root, in this case because it's 3, of 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. So if you see one of those square root symbols, or one of those little kind of things, that means what is the square root or cube root. You could do 4 or 5 of a given value. So computers don't handle certain things terribly well in their formulas, like the multiply symbol and the divide symbol, um, and exponents. So there's some shortcuts that you'll sometimes computers and their screens use. Like if you see an asterisk, that typically means multiply. If you see a slash, it typically means divide. And if you see what's called a caret, which is kind of that up arrow, you'll see an exponent. So be aware that sometimes when you're looking at stuff, you may see those symbols, and they're just replacements for multiply, divide, and exponents. Okay, time for some questions. I've got 3 questions for you in the first section. If A equals 50 times 4 plus 7, what is the value of A? Second question, if B equals parentheses 25 plus 10 parentheses times 4, what is the value of B? Question 3, if C equals parentheses 10 plus 90 times parentheses 4 plus 1, what is the value of C? Go ahead and press pause and take some time to get those answers. So let's go through the answers. For A, you should have gotten 207. If you got 1400, remember, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. For the second question, B, you should have gotten 140. Did you get 65? Remember parentheses first. And for C, you should have gotten 500. Did you get something different? Again, remember parentheses first. Let's do some more questions. If x equals 4, what is x to the second power? If x equals 3, what is 2 to the second power plus x to the third power? If y equals the square root of 9, what is the value of y? And if z equals 4 asterisk 4, what is the value of z? Go ahead and press pause and answer those 4 questions. So let's go through the answers. So if x is 4, x to the second power is 4 times 4, or 16. In the second question, we're just going to set x to 3. Now, 2 to the second power is 2 times 2, and x, which is 3 to the third power, is 3 times 3 times 3. Now remember your order of operations. So it's 2 times 2, which is 4, plus 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. So that's 31. In the final question, or the next question, if y is the square root of 9, 3 times 3 equals 9, so the value of y is 3. And in the final question, remember that an asterisk in computer speak is like a multiplier, so 4 times 4 equals 16. That's the end of lesson 2, order of operations.